Welcome to She walks in the Smokies, one hip at a time.
So I have this Super XL automatic, but I've had it for a while and I've never cut with it. But I have had it running and idling, and I have a feeling it's got a reed issue. And I also have a feeling it might have an air leak. But I'm going to give you a before and after. As long as this thing does work tomorrow, I'm going to give you a before and after so you can see how it runs before and after. You know what I mean? So I'm just going to go over it real quick and see what I can discover. Alrighty? Let's see what we find. Let me see if I can get this steady. So can you see the issue? It may not show up so well. That reed's got a piece missing. But look at this one. Can you see the gap? See it? So these are basically like a valve. So every time the cylinder goes down, it pushes air back towards the carburetor. And if that reed doesn't close, the air ends up getting shoved back up the carburetor the wrong direction. And just from looking at it, I can tell you 3 of them are not closing. And one of them is missing a piece. So let's go ahead and work at fixing this little problem. I do have spare parts. So let's fix this. All right, so can you see it? Does it look better to you? I can tell you 2 of them do have just a tad bit of play, but this is about as good as I'm going to get it. It should be a lot better now. So the solution is literally just to pull them out and flip them over. You can see the line there from where it was hitting before. And I just flipped it over to the back side. Only one of them didn't need flip, that one. I replaced the one that had a chunk missing out of it. But I basically flipped them all over backwards. It's not perfect, but it's a lot better than it was. Now, this does not affect you too much at high speed. This affects you at low RPM, like getting a good idle and so forth. Sometimes it makes you think you have an air leak when it's actually just your reed valve isn't closing all the way. There we go. While I was at it, I went ahead and changed the fuel line. The other one was getting pretty soft, so I stuck a new fuel line on there. Got it all back together. And I think I'm going to pull this side off and the flywheel off and check the seal. I think I'm going to do that because I do have a replacement seal for this side. So if anything looks out of the ordinary, I'm going to put a new seal in. Alrighty, let's go do that next. Alright, so I got the side off. I'm getting ready to pull this whole assembly off. Now if you ever do this, you notice this, how it's slotted? You can kind of mess up the timing a little bit if you take it way out, you know what I mean? So just look at where your screws tighten down and try to line it up with that same spot whenever you put it back together. You know what I mean? That's all you gotta do. Now, I'm gonna pull this off and we're gonna take a look for the first time. I've got it off, but there's this piece of felt here we got to get off. And what do you see? See how wet it is? Telltale sign that there's a leak. It should not be that wet. It could be cleaned a little bit, but it's really not that bad. I've seen far worse. But you see how wet it is? Definitely a leak there. So let's go ahead and just replace that seal. So I just wanted to show you this after I pulled it out. See it in there? Here's our seal. This is a single lip seal. I'm putting in a double lip. So that's what I use double lip whenever. Every time I change a seal, I go double lip. Every time. You don't have to. That's just what I do. It's easier for me. I just order a bunch of one part number, and when I run out, I order a bunch more. Here's our new one. It's a double lip. If you ever do this, just smear a bunch of oil on it before you put it in. That's all you do. Just smear a bunch of oil on it. Okay, let's get it back in. Let's get this thing. So there's our new seal. All back in. What I gotta do now is put this on. Slide this guy back on. And make sure everything is lined up right. See down in there? Put my screws in and I'm back together. Let's throw it all back together quick. Cover on. Flywheel's back on. I'm already put the side cover on. So there it is, all back together. I wish I had seals for the other side because I'd pull that apart right now and replace that seal. I would. Just to give you an idea about how much time I got here, I fixed the reed and replaced this seal in less than an hour. Probably 45 minutes. Cut side, so you're probably looking at about an hour and 15 minutes or so to replace both seals and fix that reed. I'm going to fire this up tomorrow anyway. When I have it fired up, I'll do a tilt test, and that should tell me if I'm leaking anything pretty easily. So I may not need to pull it apart. It may not be leaking. But I do usually replace them as soon as I get them, all of them. The seals are 40 or 50 years old, you know. Chances are they need to go. All right, so it's time to fire this bad boy up. I'm gonna wrench it. You're gonna hear the idle come down. Give it a tilt and see what happens. It'll probably shut off. Now it's trying to shut off again. Let me lean it up a little. Okay, let's tilt it and see what happens. got an air leak. Probably the seal that I haven't changed. So we're getting closer. We still got an air leak, but it's definitely getting closer. You could hear it. I'd make an adjustment, and then after a minute, it's like the adjustment was off just by letting it run. But after I let it run for a minute, it's like the tuning was changing by itself. That's because of the air leak. As the saw warms up, the air leak changes. It'll grow or reduce. It'll do one or the other as it warms up, and it causes your tuning to change. So we're running, but we got to wait for the other seal to come to change it out. And then we'll do this process again and see what happens. So it's going to be a few days till the seal gets here. So I might just throw this video up like this. And we'll finish the tuning process after the other seal comes and see how she cuts. What do you think? Want to see how it does? You can already see a difference in the way it's idling, can't you? The first time as I fired this saw up, it just didn't want to idle worth a squat. But you can see now it's getting close. It's getting a lot closer to the way it should idle. So it's just an easy way to check it, if you know what I mean. It shouldn't change. You should be able to set that, and then every time you let out the trigger, it should just go right back to where it's supposed to be. That's the way it should go. And that's what we're working on. We're working on bringing it back to that point. Now, there are gaskets on this saw, so we could have an air leak at a gasket. But we're going to go after a seal first, because it's almost always going to be the seal. But it could be a gasket. I've seen it happen a few times. But I'm pretty happy, huh? Aren't you? We got this Super XL Auto, and it's running pretty good. I could cut with it right now. If I wanted to, I could lean it out enough to where it wouldn't shut off and just go to town. That's what most people do, and they don't realize they have a leak. Fellows who just cut firewood all the time, they never end up tilting their saw onto the side. A lot of times they don't even realize they have an air leak. So what they do is they play with the adjustment until, you know, it's running good, and they just leave it, never knowing that they have a leak. But we're doing everything we can to sort this leak out, and you can see it's a process. Unless you have all the parts on hand, you could end up having to order parts, wait, but it's part of the process. It takes time. So this is where we're at. Let me flip this around so you can look at the saw one more time. So this is where we're at here. And pretty happy. You got to sharpen it up and make some cuts. We're just waiting on a seal now. Alrighty. Can't wait.
Welcome to our